TikTok's fate in the US is now in the hands of the courts. But this isn't just about one app. It's about how far the government can go when it calls something a national security threat. So, can America really ban TikTok? Let's break it down. What if the US government could decide which apps you're allowed to use? That's not a hypothetical. It's happening right now. The case TikTok Inc. versus Garland could change the way we think about national security, free speech, and even the future of the internet itself. TikTok, the app with more than 150 million American users, is facing a legal battle that could determine whether the government can ban or force the sale of a foreign-owned social media platform. On one side, the US government argues that TikTok poses a national security threat due to a direct line of influence and data collection from China. On the other, TikTok and millions of creators argue that a ban would violate the First Amendment and the free flow of information in a digital world. And in the middle, a question that courts have never fully answered. Can a government legally shut down a speech platform just because of who owns it? This is one of the most consequential tech cases in years. It's about TikTok, yes, but it's also about the limits of executive power, the tension between security and speech, and how we define freedom of expression in the 21st century. Today we're unpacking it all: the background, the legal arguments, the constitutional stakes, and what this case could mean for the future of the internet. Welcome to Legally Speaking, where legal news meets real-world impact. Let's start with how we got here, because the road to TikTok versus Garland didn't begin in 2025. It began years earlier, with a growing fear in Washington that an app for dancing videos might be a Trojan horse for something much bigger. TikTok's parent company ByteDance was founded in China in 2012. By 2016, it launched Douyin for the Chinese market, and a year later, an international version, TikTok. ByteDance then acquired Musical.ly, and in 2018 merged the two platforms. TikTok exploded into the global phenomenon we know today. The lawmakers in Washington started asking a question. If TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, could the Chinese government access American users' data? By 2020, under the Trump administration, those questions became legal threats. Trump issued executive orders citing national security concerns, claiming TikTok could collect user data, track federal employees, and even spread propaganda. He relied on the International Emergency Powers Act, also known as IEEPA, a law that gives presidents broad authority to restrict foreign transactions during a declared national emergency. The Trump administration tried to ban TikTok from app stores and force the sale of the U.S. operations. TikTok sued and won. Courts blocked the ban, saying the administration likely overstepped IEEPA authority. When Biden took office, he revoked Trump's orders, but he replaced them with a new review process under CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. Negotiations dragged on for years, with TikTok proposing Project Texas, a plan to store all U.S. user data domestically with oversight by Oracle. The lawmakers weren't satisfied. They argued ByteDance's ownership still posed a risk. In 2024, Congress passed a law: sell your U.S. operations or be banned. TikTok sued the government, claiming the law violated the First Amendment and constitutional separation of powers. And that's how we got to TikTok Inc. versus Garland. Next, let's dive into the law behind the case, what statutes, doctrines, and constitutional principles are in play. Banning an app might sound simple, but when the app is a platform for speech, the law says it's complicated. Let's take a look at the laws involved. First up, we have IEEPA, the government's emergency power tool. Passed in 1977, IEEPA lets the president regulate foreign transactions during national emergencies. But Congress limited its reach. It cannot restrict personal communications or informational materials. This is why Trump's original TikTok ban was blocked. TikTok is a platform for communication, not just a company. The 2024 law is different. Congress itself mandated the sale or banned. Now the question is whether this statutory authority infringes constitutional protections. Next, we have free speech under the First Amendment. TikTok argues banning it silences millions of Americans, from creators to small businesses. The law may target ownership, but the effect is on speech. The government responds, "We're targeting control, not speech." Courts must decide whether this is a security measure or disguised censorship. And then there's the major questions doctrine. This doctrine says if government action has major political or economic significance, Congress must speak clearly. TikTok claims the law is too broad and vague, giving the executive branch excessive power. Finally, we have due process under the Fifth Amendment. TikTok argues it's being forced to sell without fair process. The government counters it has classified intelligence to justify its position. No doubt, the stakes test executive power, congressional authority, and constitutional rights in a digital age. Next, we'll break down each side's arguments. By the time the case reached the DC Circuit, both sides had sharpened their storylines. TikTok's position is free speech first, based on the following arguments. Number 1, unprecedented law. Never before has Congress effectively banned a communication platform used by more than 150 million Americans. Number 2, the law is vague and overbroad. The new law gives government power without transparency. Number 3, there are less restrictive alternatives. Project Texas stores data domestically under U.S. oversight. And finally, user harm. Millions of creators, businesses, and educators rely on TikTok. TikTok has stated you can't protect freedom by destroying it. The government's position is grounded in national security first, based upon the following concepts. Number 1, ownership risk. ByteDance could be compelled by China to access data. Number 2, congressional authority. Bipartisan law grants the government discretion. And number 3, this is not censorship. TikTok can operate as long as it's not controlled by ByteDance. There is a clash of narratives. TikTok's position relies on freedom of speech, innovation, and cultural exchange, while the government is prioritizing data, influence, and espionage. Both are true, which is why this case is so explosive. But the stakes extend far beyond TikTok. If this were only about one app, it wouldn't matter, but it's about who controls the digital world. A decision in the favor of the U.S. government would set a precedent which could allow Congress to regulate foreign-owned platforms broadly. Impacts could be felt globally. Other nations are watching. The U.S. could become predictably restrictive. Then there is its effects on innovation. Startups and investors may be hesitant to scale internationally. And finally, a security paradox. Restricting TikTok may protect security, but it limits the freedoms that define it. TikTok versus Garland is a test of freedom, security, and the rules of the digital age. The DC Circuit could force a sale, allow TikTok to operate, or the case may go to the Supreme Court. Judges will weigh the following key questions. Number 1, authority. Can Congress compel a sale? Number 2, the First Amendment. Does banning TikTok violate free speech? And number 3, due process. Was TikTok given a fair chance to contest their claims? There are broader implications still. The first being to users and their access to platforms and speech rights. Next is tech companies and their investment in global strategy. And third is governments and their future of cybersecurity and digital policy. Ultimately, TikTok versus Garland is more than an app. It's about who decides the rules of the internet and what freedoms we are willing to trade for security. If you found this breakdown helpful, subscribe to Legally Speaking, where we unpack legal news with real-world impact, without the legalese. Hit the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the cases that shape your life, your rights, and your world.